All right, welcome aboard, everybody. So here we are for another episode, and I know Jake is not here, but hat tip to him. He's at the Bitcoin 25 conference trying to get some footage of the Ross Ulbricht speech. So thank you for the trust in this, Jake. Yeah, exactly. So thank you for the trust here, Jake. I'm gonna do what I can. We'll try to make you as proud as the mother of that scientist that discovered mammals can breathe through their intestines we talked about last week. Anyways, we have a guest with us, Art Bowker. Hope I pronounced your name correctly. I should have asked you that.
Actually, it's Boker.
There we go. Okay, Mr. Boker, what you drinking tonight?
Just a little bit of monkey shoulder scotch.
Oh, nice.
Very classy. Very classy. And then we're also joined by.
That's a great way to be doing the show.
Yeah, right. And then we're also joined by Alden Hardee as usual. So, Alden, you normally have something creative. What you got?
I got German beer and Scotch whiskey. I've got Lagavulin 8 here for my birthday here.
Right on. And then Nick Ciesielski. What's up, man? What you got in your glass?
I got the Yuengling Black and Tan again with a icy light on the side.
Good deal. I'm still tearing through my zombie dust that I found in Ohio a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, well, it's fresh, man. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I bought too much of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, without further ado here, Mr. Bowker, who are you? What do you do? Let's hear about your blog.
Well, I've actually was involved in law enforcement. It's going on probably about 35 years now. Got involved in cybercrime as a U.S. probation officer, not committing cybercrime, but supervising cyber offenders. And I wrote one book myself, and then I've co-wrote 2 books with a gentleman by the name of Todd Shipley. And the first book was on investigating internet crimes. And the second book just came out, is Surviving a Cyber Attack, which is the first 2 books were kind of written for professionals, law enforcement, probation, people involved in the investigations of these kinds of crimes. This book was for targeting families, the everyday person. We decided to have not only a chapter on protecting kids, but protecting the elderly, because they're getting scammed big time. How to operate safely in the marketplace, Facebook marketplace, if you're a business. So we devoted chapters to each individual one of those topics with checklists and that. And it came out, I think it was in October of this past year. So we wanted we wanted something that, that the everyday person could read and understand. And, we had been teaching law enforcement techniques and so we knew how to, I don't want to say dumb down things, but explain things in non-technical ways. And now I don't have a computer science degree. I picked it up through training and experience and just, keeping abreast, reading up on it and that kind of stuff. So we had actually regular folks read the book, read the chapters, and to make sure we were talking in a manner that was understandable, not too technical, and we got favorable reviews. So we said, let's do this.
Nice. There we go. And I've got it pulled up on Amazon right now. So anybody that's interested, go get it. Looks like it's you got a paperback or Kindle, so you got some options there. So
very cool. Unfortunately, probably something we could use is more sort of awareness and preparedness and ways to protect against and respond to a cyber attack.
And coming at it from a law enforcement perspective too, because my dad was a cop for 45 years. The only reason he finally retired was because his blood pressure wasn't right until he did. But he was detective, bomb tech, so he was in that kind of angle. But coming at it from that perspective, I'm sure you've probably seen and experienced some things that kind of put that in your lap. Because a lot of your specialties are usually unwillingly acquired over a career like that.
Yeah, there's unfortunately I saw some images in my career that I will never forget, and understand how traumatic that is the person that's being victimized. And some of the things that are going on now, we mentioned about pig butchering, which is basically schemes going after vulnerable folks. And it's got the term pig butchering because basically they target somebody, they send them an email, they send them a text. Oh, you seem like a nice person. Can we be friends? And they start developing a relationship. They also do it on dating sites and whatnot. And basically they fatten them up with love, get them to trust them, and then they go, hey, I'd like us to be together, and we can be together if you get rich doing cryptocurrency investments. And they basically fabricate the investments, make it, they're earning all kinds of money. And basically then after they have fattened them up with love, they financially kill them, basically wipe out all their assets and take off. And initially I was like, these criminals are, that's cold-hearted. But
yeah,
there is another aspect that this is actually an industrial criminal organization where they are engaging in human trafficking to get people to work, trick them into coming into a country based on false pretenses of getting them a tech job. They get them into that country, they take their passport, and basically say, you're not leaving until you work in various aspects of this scheme. And there's a lady who's been talking about it. She's got an organization it's called Shamrock organization, where she has gone to these third world countries, and they're building complexes, like industrial complexes to house the workers, to bring in the internet and whatnot. And it's on an industrial scale, and it's just, and then they're using AI, making things believable. I haven't seen anything. I didn't see anything like that in my career.
It's wild how these things develop. Like, we all think back to the Nigerian prince scam as one of the early ones that has kind of become pretty famous. And that's very, very simple. That's just trying to find one idiot to send you some money. One person to get fooled by that and say, okay, yeah, here's some money, and run off with it. And, that's a numbers game. But now you're talking about targeting it in, and I've done, the cybersecurity trainings at work that we have to do. And they're like, they'll go on your link, it warns you, they'll go on your LinkedIn, try to find out what your position is, this, that, and dive in there and actually try to, socially engineer it. And now, I guess with AI, you could probably scrape all that pretty easily and have a nice, easy summary of who works for who does what. You could get an AI trained on that and pretty much do it, something very, very individual at a very low cost of manpower.
Oh, absolutely. And then you mentioned crimes against the elderly too. So that's not quite the pig butchering aspect, although I'm sure there is some of that. But I mean, something that came to mind while you're talking about that was, this boomer wealth transfer that you keep hearing about in the news. That there's something like $3 trillion of assets that's going to be passed down to kids or grandkids over the next 10 to 15 years. Most of it being real estate assets. And I know, so here where I am, in Fayette County, Georgia, they've launched something called the FAN system. So there's fraud against real estate title, where they can just fake your signature, fake a notary stamp, and then take out a home equity loan on your house. And then you're none the wiser until all of a sudden you get a foreclosure notice.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm sure there's stuff like that going on.
If it's a fake notary stamp, though, can't you fight that or something? Or
yeah, well, and that's why most of the counties now, I think there's only a few outliers left in the state of Georgia, and I'm sure several other states have caught on to this too. Because I mean, as this gets more popular, it's just a necessary thing. It doesn't cost that much for the government to implement this. You get a notice when something happens to the title on your property. That's it.
Oh, yeah, good.
Yeah, someone tried to pull a scam like that with the Graceland estate.
Yeah,
not too long ago. Yeah,
with Elvis's property, is that the Graceland? Yeah.
Elvis's property. They're
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah.
yeah, there's a loan here, and we're foreclosing on it or whatever. And then, of course, the person who tried that, got caught pretty quickly, but still.
Well,
There's more eyes on that one. Go
they're
ahead, Art.
they're using AI also to do the. You've heard of the old grandparent scheme where your grandson or grandchild or niece or nephew calls you up and says, "I need you to wire me money. I've been arrested," or something.
It happened to my grandparents. Yep.
They are using AI to mimic voices they capture off of social media to
I've
make
heard
it
this, and it's one of the
sound
most terrifying things. Yeah,
to make
Man.
it sound like the kid. And
Yeah.
And the stuff with AI is just there's a case out of Florida where a guy was walking around taking pictures of kids at was it Disneyland or Disney World in Florida? I can never
In
remember.
Florida, it's World.
It's Disney World. So just think ORL for Orlando.
Okay.
I lived there and I never thought of it. That's funny.
He's taking pictures, innocent pictures. He's taking those pictures and feeding them into AI and making child pornography.
Oh man.
Oh,
So
The things
Good
people
grief.
think of.
Yeah, well, and that was, I mean, we know something that just got busted up too. I don't know if this was tied to the Epstein case or not, but something called Kid Flicks,
mhm.
where it was just like a streaming service, just like Netflix, but it was,
Okay.
all the sickos had an online repository of this crap, and I mean that we busted, I think it was a couple of hundred people here in the States that were uploading to it and watching it, and good God, just throw them in the wood chipper.
Well,
Yeah.
kind of the perspective my co-author and I took in this book is it's not just about preventing being attacked. It's what do you do to recover when you're going to get attacked? Because in this society, you're going to have a cyber event. I mean, myself and my co-author, our data was stolen when there was an OPM breach a number of years ago. So it's going to happen. Hopefully, it's nothing, egregious. But we walk you through. What do you do? How do you recover? How do you report it? We stress reporting it, even though it may seem like you don't want to report it. You want to report it because it helps law enforcement track down these guys, and if they're able to seize assets, you become a victim, you may be able to get some of those assets back. So we really stress, and that's the title of the book, Surviving a Cyber Attack. It's not just okay,
Not
do this through
preventing,
your
but
computer.
surviving.
It's how to go from there.
Well,
Yeah.
and cyber insurance has become a growing thing too. And I mean, most of the policies, I mean, they'll cover you for $10 a month. I mean, something small. Now, a lot of them, they want to get to know you too. I mean, they come to your office and, hey, how are you doing business? What are you doing business on? Let me watch. Let me dig around. So they get to know you. But once they know you and trust your processes, or have you implement some new ones, then they insure you. So it's they kind of protect themselves first. And I've been to, there's a couple of business lunch presentations I've been to with there's a insurance company around here that shares a name with one of our state senators. Obviously, surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
But they were just talking about, I mean, just how much gets stolen, and it can't even be recovered. And it's not. I mean, this isn't even just like ransomware. I mean, because that's a growing thing too. But so like City of Atlanta here in Georgia, there were like fake parking tickets. So you come out to your car, you got a parking ticket on your windshield. It's got the official seal of the city. And the only way you would know the difference is if you knew domain names and how they're registered, because it was cityofatlanta.com and not
as
.gov.
opposed to gov or whatever. Yeah.
Right. And so you go to that .com website and you pay your ticket and they clean you out.
Dang.
And and that's, I mean, we almost got because we went down to Florida. We went down to Disney World back at Thanksgiving last year. We came back on a toll road, and we come back home, and of course we didn't have a sun pass. We didn't stop to get a sun pass. I had a screaming baby in the back seat.
Right.
So we come home, and then 2 weeks later, my wife and I are both getting text messages saying we have an overdue toll ticket.
Yeah.
and it had the date and the time and where we were and everything. The only difference was, I go to the link and I'm like, that's not Florida DOT.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is this? Because it was asking stuff that had nothing to do with us.
We had one when we went through Kentucky. We went through Louisville, and we got one of those texts right after, and it knew like the state we were in and everything. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's upsetting.
Just today, I got a phone call, informing me that I was about to get charged for a new iPhone, the full amount of $999, and that's weird because a month ago I got a new iPhone, so somehow they are, and that was on a Verizon discount with a trade-in, steeply discounted, so the cash amount is not anywhere near that, but
they know what to do to get you.
But they know, and I got that, and it's like, give us a call back if you don't want this or something, and I'm like, I'm not calling that number back.
Well, they pay attention to those things. They pay attention to when a company's running a big sale or some kind of giveaway, and then they send out a bunch of those emails, and they're going to hit somebody who may have bought a phone out of that group, and that's how they get you. They make it very believable. I read a book recently. It basically said a lot of these scams are like magicians. Look over here while I'm doing this, and it's you're basically obscuring the true purpose of what's going on, and it's very appropriate the way they describe these scams and the things that these guys are doing. And like I said, the thing that caught my attention is the pig butchering where it was organized, and I know it's probably organized on other scales as well, but just that industrial type organization, and they're in countries that really don't care. They look the other way, and they look at I don't want to say they look at the countries that have the population has retirement, have investments, and they're like, these guys have money, and they're going where the money is. There's a bank robber who used to say, why do you rob banks? That's where the money's at. And that's why we're getting targeted.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, statistically, we've never been dumber as a society over here, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, we've been the number one consuming nation for the last 30 years in a row. So now you have multiple generations deep of whatever you want, you have it on demand as much as you want, and it's affordable if that's all you really want. So there's a study that came out recently that the average attention span of an American these days is like 8 seconds or 7.5 seconds, less than a goldfish. Less than
I was going to make the goldfish joke. I forgot what the goldfish was, but I'm somewhere in like the 12 or 15 second or something like that. Right.
So, I mean, really, we're ripe for the picking. So, I mean, you get that, you get the boomer wealth transfer. You've got this aging population that might have been vigilant at the advent of the internet, and now they're getting up there in age, and they're just a little more trusting of everything. And I mean, I'm sure it's easier than it's ever been if you want to scam somebody.
My dad was a federal bank examiner, and he was contacting me on a regular basis that he was getting calls from the FBI that they were going to arrest him, sending him emails, and he could not believe anybody would impersonate the FBI. How dare they?
Wow.
And I'm like, Dad, they're in another country. They could care less. And he's like, damn it, the FBI should do something about this. And just trying to educate him, like, no. If the FBI wants you, they're going to come knock at your door. They don't send text messages.
You're not going to get a text.
Yeah. And they're not going to take you cashing in, sending them Apple cards to take care of whatever it is.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So, I mean, without giving away your book for free, I mean, I'm reading some of these bullet points here. So securing your router and social media accounts, mitigating risk for children, vulnerable adults. I mean, you got some hot tips you could share?
Yeah. I'm particularly happy with the chapters that we dealt with children as well as the vulnerable adults, because
Mhm.
we talk about not only how you secure their equipment, but red flags to look for if they have been targeted, for like kids. They're pulling away from the family. They're maybe eating habits have changed. They're isolating themselves. Same thing with adults. Adults, the vulnerable adult who's found a new love on the internet, starts talking about, I'd like to go overseas and travel. And, or they say, I'm kind of interested in Bitcoin investments. And I'm like, well, where's that coming from? And, those are red flags. And we have a whole list of them in there. But the red flags, we put those in there specifically for children and and the elderly. These are red flags. You need to look at these things. And I give presentations, and I'm surprised at people that come up and go, "This happened to me. This happened to my friend." I went to a presentation, and a state trooper gave a story about one of his fellow trooper's sons was stealing money out of his mom's purse. And it turned out he was a victim of sex extortion. They were extorting money from him. And the sex extortion, there's been kids who've committed suicide because they don't care. Give me the money. He trick them into sending some picture of themselves, and they threaten that we're going to tell your family your life is over, and they'll take whatever they can. And then, I thought that was bad, but there was also a story about these guys on gaming systems that were doing the same thing with other kid gamers, and they would not only extort them for money, but extort them to do things that they wouldn't normally do, like mutilate themselves or kill an animal or something. And they would film it so they could use it and sell it on the whatever marketplace people go for that kind of nonsense. So just an evil out there that is I dealt with sex offenders, and that's another form of evil there. So, but the red flags to look for of your kids changed or something going on. Maybe they're being targeted for cyberbullying, those kinds of things. I shared a story about Kentucky, which blew my mind. There was a guy in Kentucky who had befriended people on Facebook. He was a member of a church down there, and he was taking pictures off of his fellow friends off of social media, taking those innocent pictures and then posting them to a porn site. These innocent pictures, and then other members of that porn site would make crude comments and threats and whatnot. And it came out, and the community was, rightfully so, was in an uproar. Well, this Einstein not only did it to church members, but he also did it with the local sheriff's family, Kentucky state troopers down there, and I believe a state representative. So he was just taking innocent pictures and posting them, and they charged him initially with stalking under Kentucky law. And then, of course, I knew when I heard this story, he had child porn as well. He was pandering child porn. So, but you think somebody's taking your picture, what are they doing with that picture? And nowadays you can take a picture off the internet and run it through a search engine and tell wherever that picture came up. And actually identify that person. So it just raises the risk so much. By the way, the pictures on my blog are all artificial intelligence created, AI. So those are not real people that I get pictures of.
So that's why it's like the same dude's face with different hair.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't want my face on there with that'd be another level of inappropriate. So
right, yeah, not a convincing.
you can do is like a protection, like you can protect your own self and your anonymity, and you can use a fake image, but it's also, that goes both ways, where I see a lot of accounts that are like bot accounts and scam accounts and things like that, and they're using AI to make a believable image that's a Mod Podge of other images, because they don't want to put, obviously their face out, and I've seen that a bunch of times. And a lot of times it's like a still from a movie, where it'll be like something from Terminator or something like that, but then they'll like put some other weird face mashup into a movie frame. It's weird. Like that's like a thing that's on some like scam accounts and stuff now. Bizarre.
Now, whenever I get a picture of some model who's like, in her 20s or 30s saying, "Hey, you're just the kind of guy I'm looking for."
Right.
Overweight, cigar smoking, bourbon drinking guy. Yeah, I'll bet you're real.
That's the track we're all on. So we should be wary, I guess, if we get these messages.
If you read some of the license agreements for your social media accounts too, like Facebook, you get everything you upload, you give them permission to profit from your image.
Yeah.
Instagram.
I'm aware of this as like an artist. Yeah.
Yeah, Snapchat. I mean, for God's sake, Snapchat is a CIA facial recognition algorithm.
Several of these have links to CIA programs, Facebook and Snapchat and things like.
So it's
you just gotta look for InQtel.
What's that?
You just gotta look who InQtel has invested in.
Yeah.
There's a book out by Kashmir Hill. She used to work for Forbes. I forget what company she works for now. She wrote a book in details about imaging and the facial recognition and the dangers and all the tie-ins. It's a great book. Kashmir Hill. I can't think of what the title of the book is right off the top, but it really goes deep into how long that's been developed and what they used and how it's being used and scary stuff.
Yeah. Someone else who's not here today, but Zach, normally our producer, he's deep into that kind of stuff and the facial recognition stuff and cybersecurity. And I wish he were here for this, because he, I think, would have more to add, honestly, than us about it. And he has his own podcast called Vanish Big Brother, where he talks a lot about the risks and dangers of and the invasion of privacy and things like that. And unfortunately, Atlanta's really bad. I was just watching something I shared with the group or whatever. If this is true, like it was, it has like more cameras per capita than like any other city in the country or world or something. It's, if this is true, even, I don't know, like you hear so many things or whatever, but.
Where's it? Atlanta?
Atlanta, that's what I was reading, but.
I've been working in certain parts of the city where, I wind up, walking across a gang house, a bunch of rolling six Crips, wondering what I'm doing out there. Of course, I do land surveying work. So, you out here taking my picture? You out here taking my picture? It's like, give me your email address. I'll send it to you. Of course, then they start, I'm like, this isn't safe. So, you call them, they figure out what side of the tracks you're on. And they're like, unless someone's dead or dying, we're not going over there. So guarantee there's no cameras on that side of town.
That's fair, yeah.
And in today's world, we talk about that. Do you want to just stick your head in the sand and not be a hermit? And it's just not. And we talk also about, you can lock down your computer, you can maybe lock down your business computer, but what about your doctor? What about their computer? What about
which is the number one source of identity fraud in the country?
Is it really?
Do not ever put your social security number on your doctor's forms. They don't need that crap. Or if they really do need it, you stand next to the computer and just whisper it to that one lady. You don't write it down.
I hate when they do the thing where they read it back out loud. Like,
yeah.
I don't do it on firearm background checks either. That says
do you not need to?
Optional. It's optional. I'm not doing that.
It was never intended to be a system of identification.
I do know this, and it's slowly, of course, just like the boiling water frog situation. It just became a system of identification.
Issuing them sequentially up until a certain point,
right?
Fairly recently.
Oh, I mean, you could go through some old real estate records, especially like Florida's real bad. they'll put the social security numbers in the daggum deed.
It used to be in Ohio, they put social security numbers on the voter registration cards, the handwritten cards.
God help us.
You went back, you could find their social security numbers on them.
Man.
Wow.
Jeez.
My girlfriend has 2 social numbers for some reason. It was like a weird mix-up at birth or something like that. So it's caused her a lot of headaches over the years.
So she definitely votes Democrat, is what you're telling me.
It's a 2000 mule situation.
Yeah, there we go. So Art, I mean, this is a libertarian show after all, so we do have to kind of put the slant to it for the cybersecurity aspect. This is something that just came across. I was just browsing news earlier this week, and this came up. Tim Berners-Lee, the guy that actually created the internet, not Al Gore.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
Al Gore didn't create the internet? Stop the presses.
So they were pressing him of, hey, did you do the right thing, right? Because he's now become a privacy advocate. Just in the last 5 to 10 years, he sees kind of what's going on. And of course, while Obama was in office, and of course, I mean, the winds were already shifting this direction anyways. But our DNS registry goes through the European agency now. Mm-hmm. And that happened while Obama was president. So then people went back to Tim Berners-Lee and were like, hey, did you ever intend it like this? And he was like, well, I never knew it was going to be such a power grab at the top. It was not,
Mm-hmm.
It's not supposed to be this way. So now he's coming out and saying things. And of course, this is at an Ethereum conference, but he was, if he did it again, it would be more decentralized. So, are you seeing some things like that too, where, I mean, we just talked about medical records. Is it negligence or, any kind of nefarious action at people that aggregate these data? I mean, we know Equifax, I mean, it was the login to their server, during their big data breach was admin.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's an admin or admin. Yeah.
Yeah. No one went to jail. They just paid the fine.
It's like the default login.
A lot of these systems, when they were originally developed, they didn't put security as something we needed to worry about. And that's a problem with a lot of the Internet of Things devices. They didn't put security in there because they're like, who's going to hack into a thermostat? Who cares about that? And I'll give you an example of where this happened out in Las Vegas. Somebody hacked into a thermostat next to an aquarium. And from there, they were able to get a list and data on all the high rollers at that casino.
Wow.
So the Internet of Things, and we talk about that, those devices, you bring them into your home, they're like, oh, this is great. Well, what capabilities do they have? Can you lock them down? Can you change the password? Because a lot of people don't change the administrative password. It's the same as what the factory built in.
Right,
and,
but it's like the chain weakest link thing where, like, if you have your fridge or TV or thermostat or something where you have just no password or the base password or something like that, and then that's like the way in that people will find is like the weakest link there.
Well, I mean, growing up, that's how you would get beer out of the garage of the retired pilot down the street. Right? He'd go off with his buddies for the weekend, and he wouldn't reset the default setting on his garage door. So you go there with your garage door opener, you put it on the factory set, and his garage door opens. Grab a 6-pack, good to go.
You only took a 6-pack though.
Well,
you gotta take just enough that they don't know and then change the password. Yeah,
that's right. Okay. That's right. Yeah, you can't get noticed.
It's the trickle stealing effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this also, at one point I was reading on that this is also an issue, not just in, devices in the home or in things like that, but also devices used in like utility infrastructure and things like that with all these remote monitoring systems, remote control systems. They've never bothered to update like the admin passwords when they installed it. And for a while, I don't know if they've gone through and fixed it up, but at one point they were just letting, it was all default passwords, meaning anyone, near there could get into that system and control that equipment.
Well, That's how they took out, crippled the Iranians' nuclear capacity for a little bit. They screwed around with the code in the controllers to make the centrifuges spin faster than what they were supposed to, and they kept breaking down. And that was a code that a virus that got into their system. Let's see, somebody from the initials, USA might have been involved, maybe Israel. It's kind of like, we don't know what you're talking about, but the reports are that's what happened. They got into the industrial controllers, and the frightening thing is our infrastructure, our electricity, all that kind of stuff has got controls that are digitized and controlled by computers. And if somebody has a mind, they're going to find a way, and we're going to get screwed one of these days. They're going to shut down a network. One of the scenarios that people talk about is a cyber attack coupled with a real world attack to make the damage even worse.
Oh, right. Well, and we know that, like municipal water supplies around the country, or power substations, for instance. That's been a hot button issue since Newt Gingrich ran for president. God, what was that, 2008? So, because his big thing was insulate the power grid. Because at that time, North Korea was still flexing. They were going to drop an EMP on us or something like that, which, still, if anybody did that today, it'd be devastating. And he, at the time, he was saying, $2 billion or something, minuscule, could insulate the sensitive parts of our power grid, or at least, the major parts of it, from an EMP attack. But then around the same time, there was some Navy SEAL that wrote a book that was talking about how vulnerable the power grid is, because there's 9 major power distribution centers in the country, and 6 of those were connected to the internet. Ooh. And that was 17 years ago. I'm sure there's probably more than 6 now. And so,
there's not a lot of hubs for the power grid in general. Very few that control all of the country. It's kind of wild in general, just that there's so few points. And so it wouldn't take much in general there, but even if it wasn't a cyber attack, even if it was just a solar flare or something, I'm nervous. But
yes, so absolutely.
I'm going to do what I'm known to do. I'm going to throw a hand grenade into this conversation.
Sure.
So do you think that big, beautiful tax bill that is working its way through Congress covers cybersecurity and updating all those systems so we're toughen up our targets?
I doubt that.
Listen. No one does cybersecurity like us. Trust me. We talked to all the experts. They all agree.
Everyone's told me
we're the best. Yeah.
Aren't we?
Everyone's
when you're talking
how good it is.
When you're talking the electrical grid, also on that, aren't most of those transformers still coming from China, and the worry that there's a back door in them?
Yeah.
Most. It was just like I don't even know if we make ours anymore. Anyway.
Which airplane did we have to discontinue because our pilots were getting the Raptor cough? Because once they got to a certain altitude that was like their stealth altitude, the O2 was not being diluted properly.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Come to find out, it was Chinese motherboards that were programmed that way
to not allow you to go above radar.
Once they got to the stealth altitude, that they weren't getting enough oxygen into the cabin.
Wow.
And they'd have to drop back down into radar range.
That's legitimately scary.
Yeah. Well, and then you got Zach saying that, there's a sign at his doctor's office that says not to say sensitive information around their Alexa.
Why do they have an Alexa in the doctor's office?
Right.
Maybe get rid of that.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. What were you going to say, Luke?
I was reminded of we had I live in Northern Ohio. And about 10 years ago, our whole northern part of Ohio, or big part of Cleveland and the surrounding area, was blacked out. And it's because the power companies hadn't been trimming the friggin' trees, and they knocked out a central, just something simple like that. So, we're talking about
an ice storm or something.
Yeah. No, it was in dead of summer. And it was one of the
just
branches.
A squirrel nest came down.
Yeah. And so if they're not taking care of those basic things, you got to wonder what they're doing with the other stuff.
That's fair. Yeah. just a sign that they're just not going out of their way to help with the physical infrastructure, then it leads one to believe that they're not going out of their way to help with their cyber infrastructure either. It's troubling.
Yeah. So what's Zach saying here? So they can be intercepted and backdoored. Carly Fiorina admitted to letting the NSA do it while she was at HP. Then remember the Israeli pagers. Oh yeah, the Israeli pagers. Yeah. They had some explosive sales on those. I heard.
I was like, if this is the story that I was thinking of, and then you made that joke, and I'm like, yeah, I know exactly the story here. Yeah.
But then to swing real quick back to Stuxnet, the interesting part on that whole thing was that virus, whatever, that malware was out in the wild, and it only got discovered by mistake. Like it made its way onto a massive number of computer systems, but it was programmed specifically to look for Siemens controllers that would be used on centrifuges, and that was the only thing it was looking to infect. And what was also interesting is I believe it was air gapped. Like there was no, like the Iranian computers that were controlling those weren't connected to the internet. So someone took a flash drive and plugged it into a computer that had it on at one point, and it jumped. It was
physical.
Well, and that's at the end of the day, you can have the tightest firewall in the world. If you got a dumb person running the terminal,
yeah,
game over.
It doesn't take much.
Well, when we talk about security in businesses, knowing what your employees are doing, training them, keeping them up to date, like don't do this, those kinds of things have to be reinforced. And also knowing who you hire, have you done a background check on this person? Do you trust them? Have they been in trouble before? Some of those basic things, some businesses don't think about. And, human error is one of the biggest breaches out there. Somebody does something they weren't supposed to do. They click on an email, they click on a link, and then it's over. You got,
or if you're John McCain, you fly into a high tension power line over in Spain and shut the grid down to a whole city. Whoops.
But I've been on the receiving end in my day jobs. I've been at 2 companies now that have had cybersecurity incidents. One we got hit. One when I was living in Atlanta, we got hit with ransomware, and we're down for several days to a week. Then just a couple months ago, earlier this year, we got hit with something. They noticed something going on in the servers that are, I guess, over in the Czech Republic or something. And they noticed something was going on and shut everything down. And it took about a week and a half before we were back to work.
How many things do you think are floating around out there that are just sort of dormant, that aren't doing anything now, but that there's a foothold, like a foot in the door, in different, whether it's power stations or whatever we were talking about, or nuclear? Like, do you think there's some kind of dormant thing where someone's waiting for the right time, or do you think that usually people find these pretty quick if there's any access?
I try not to think about that because I like to sleep at night,
Fair, yeah.
Not the right answer.
Yeah, I try not to think about a lot of the stuff we just covered.
Well, I mean, so we know the Snowden revelations, right? So, like, he came out and so the Project Echelon from the Reagan days never stopped. They're reading your emails, they're reading your text messages, or what's worse, they're actually providing the service that distributes them.
And that got even worse after 9/11 with the Patriot Act and everything.
Well, absolutely, yeah, because oh gosh, who's the general, the little gremlin dude, General Michael Hayden. So he teamed up. It was Operation Stellar Wind. He teamed up with Israel, namely, in the G7, and they created the modern day spy grid. Had help from Australia, because they've got those awesome satellites out there in the remote areas of Australia. Mm-hmm. And that's really how they can intercept basically anything, and they do at will. So I mean, if you can intercept it, you can create it, falsify it, all that kind of stuff. To do the man in the middle. So yeah, I mean that's government level cyber crimes.
So there's the government level, and then there's the private level too. So like Google will have something where it'll be like basically, again, in this 38-page legally clause thing that you have to click agree to use their thing. Here's the frustrating part. You can choose not to use Google and you can use some other source. But if someone from a Gmail account sends you an email, now your stuff is being filtered through the same way. Somehow that gets like worked in, and it's like nothing's safe. Like between public and private, and like I feel like it's one of those problems where like no matter what you choose, there's just like no way to completely protect yourself from someone seeing what your stuff and everything, and it's frustrating.
There's clearly a trade-off of, do you want your browser to give you all the best hits, or do you want it to be kind of clunky? And it all has to do with how much information are you willing to give to make your life easier. And it's unfortunately you have to make those decisions. And we kind of talk about how you set up your browser setting to limit that. But you're right. These big companies. Yeah.
Most people here, I think we use a lot of Brave, I guess, probably. I don't know what Steven uses, but
I'm just resistant to change. I'm getting up there. I'm getting tired of having to hop to a new browser.
Are you on Chrome?
No. And this is definitely going to age me here, but I swore off Chrome when they deprecated the NVMe API plugins. So that Chrome came out first and said, "Hey, we're not hosting Flash anymore."
Right.
I think that was like 2011. I was like, "Screw you, Chrome, never again."
Yeah. No, I don't use Chrome, but I've actually got like 3.
Well, yes, you do, because everything's Chrome under the hood. Well, Chromium.
See, and then that's the thing with plugins, where it's like you think you're not using it, but then you get a plugin that's a Chrome-based plugin or something like that, and here we are back again, where Google just has.
Or the ultimate irony today is you screw up and you download the McAfee antivirus now, and you can't get that crap off your computer unless you throw it in a furnace,
burn it. Yeah. Yeah.
God rest his soul. John McAfee was probably one of the biggest privacy advocates of our time.
He tried, man. Yeah, he tried.
If you watched the documentary, if you knew anything about his life, it was for good reason.
He's another one of those ones that warned right before he committed suicide that he wouldn't commit suicide, and there he goes. But
yeah, exactly. But no, he had a great app. So it was what was it? So when he came back to the States to run for president for the Libertarian Party, which we were stupid not to nominate him, because that year it was him, Austin Peterson, and Gary Johnson, and those debates were amazing.
I ended up voting for Gary Johnson, but I would have been interested to see if it went another way there. But
that was fun to watch. That was my wife's introduction to libertarian ideology. Period. Mm-hmm. We were watching those debates with John Stossel hosting them, and it was, those three up there is fantastic. But it was around that time, so he assumed control of a company called MGT over in Tennessee. Of course, they were already listed on the stock exchange. They had some kind of like sports gambling app or something like that. And so he goes in there, he buys this company, he gets in and guts it and makes it a cybersecurity company, and uses the letters that were already in place for the company's name, MGT, and made it McAfee Global Technologies.
Oh, perfect.
And the FCC had a fit, or SEC. The SEC had a fit because they were like, you're registered as an online gambling app, and now you're a cybersecurity firm. And he's like, yeah, it's all IT, it's all software development, same thing. And they were like, no, it's not. And he's they go back and forth, and he's fighting them in the way that he does.
He didn't pick his enemies well.
Right. Well, I mean, he was just. If you were against him for anything, you became his enemy.
That's the thing, yeah.
So, I mean, he rolls out this privacy phone back before it was cool. And then he had this.
Did he have one?
Yeah. And then he had this
cool app.
Back before Eric Prince was doing it.
Yeah. And what was the app? Decentral
But that was back in the day when you could take the battery out still. And so, like, it wasn't as needed in the same way. But nowadays, it's really needed because you can't actually really turn off your phone. Like,
right.
Unless you have the kill switch like these do now, but
I mean, that was the cool thing that his app exposed to me. And of course, this was over 10 years ago, but it was called Decentral One. And so you just install this app on your phone. It was free. and then any other app you get. And of course, once I got Facebook on my phone too, it was having a fit with that, because this app would alert you, hey, this app is trying to access your media, your messages, your camera, your microphone. And it wasn't like a blanket, do you give this app permission? It was like every time it did it, you had to yay or nay.
Okay.
And so I had Facebook on my phone. It was like every 5 minutes, I was like, Facebook's trying to access your microphone.
Damn.
I was like, deny. No.
So it's just letting you know every time that it's looking for these permissions or trying to, and it makes a wall every time that it tries to ask for microphone permission or camera permission or photo access. Or
so there you go. You talk about convenience and how cushy your lifestyle is,
right?
How you could craft the algorithm to actually suit your needs. If you actually want to sleep at night, you don't want one of those apps on your phone.
It's a pretty big general problem of just trading convenience or the illusion of security or something like that for like actual privacy or security. But
and again, the license agreement, yes, it's like 78 pages. They probably do that on purpose, but actually read through some of that stuff. And of course, there's a great South Park episode about it.
I bet. I haven't seen that. But
I bet you read through the license agreements, and it's horrible stuff. It's like they own your image, basically. They can do anything they want with it. So
as a total sidebar, I'm curious to ask you, I know this isn't directly related to what we're talking about, but as someone who's worked in like corrections, and I'm curious your take on the Jeffrey Epstein like suicide in prison, and like what your thoughts are on that.
Well, it definitely lends itself to conspiracy. I'm an investigator now, and I try to look at facts, and sometimes the most nefarious cause, it might be just somebody just was lazy, didn't do what they were supposed to, and you can drive yourself crazy with those. It sure sounds suspicious. You have a high profile person, and we've had other cases where you had Bulger, the big gangster, and they put him in general population in a wheelchair. Yeah, Whitey Bulger.
Yeah.
How do you make such a bonehead? Is it just stupidity, or is somebody getting paid off? And those,
in
those
his
high
case,
profiles.
Very possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it really is just boneheaded. And what's what's his name? What's the serial killer out of Florida, the Tallahassee, where there's like a documentary on him now where he escaped from custody like 2 or 3 different times, and they would just leave him unattended in some room, and he would climb down the gutter out of some second-story window or whatever, and like he was just. And this isn't like Whitey Bulger. This isn't someone who has like mob ties or whatever, and and has like someone. He's just as far as we know, a lone actor, and people are. So sometimes it really is just negligence or incompetence or just human error. But sometimes I think it's not.
Look at that chief of police who was convicted murderer and rapist, who's out wandering the streets because he was able to duplicate a corrections outfit and walk through the gate.
Oh,
wow.
That
what, in Arkansas?
Yeah.
I've not even heard of this.
Oh yeah. Well, that's one of those core principles there. What is it? Heinlein's razor? Never attribute to. No, well, Occam's razor.
It's the other one. Yeah.
But I think Heinlein's razor is the one that says never attribute to malice that which can be explained by incompetence.
Oh, okay.
Along those lines. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so it's and that seems to be the take of the German government. They'll come right out and be like, "Oh, we're so stupid. Sorry, let me pay the fine."
The German. They're on a tear lately, man, with some stuff with speaking of like rights and privacies and things like that. They're going pretty hard actually with.
Well, so I'm talking about like the Volkswagen, the diesel thing with the emission standards.
Dieselgate. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And their whole take was, "Oh, we're dumb. Sorry.
Oops. Didn't catch that one.
Yeah. Not like, I didn't think you'd notice. You know,
well,
it was a turn the other way thing.
The Europeans really have, compared to our rights of privacy, they've really upped it, and it goes back to, you know, the Nazis were keeping track of everybody, you know, had databases, and they're steadfast in, what are you doing with my data? And I have a right that you don't have it. You got to destroy it. It drives some of our social media giants crazy. But you know, I can see that we like to say we have a right to privacy. Well, we have a right to privacy is only so far as somebody's willing to enforce it. You know, it's
legally granted, but you elect to defer a lot of the time when you hit accept on these different things, and that's where the workaround is that it's like, if you choose to, you know, just click accept to this thing that says like, well, now Instagram owns all of the stuff you put on here and we can use your footage for whatever, like it's like legally on you. So we have the right, but then we also have a legal system that is protecting these, like, you know, corporate entities and value that more than the individual in the same situation or whatever.
Well, yeah, and the UK led the charge on that with like Google Street View. So that was when they started. You know, they would blur out mailbox numbers, they'd blur out license plate numbers, and of course, you know, Google had to really focus their algorithm, teach the camera to do certain things, because it's like, you know,
that's too much for one person to actually comb through.
You catch an underage kid in the window of the apartment getting dressed.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like that's a problem, because now the world can see that.
Right.
So they actually had to start editing that stuff, because apparently they weren't for a while. It caused some issues.
Well, one of the things I do on my current job is I investigate civilian complaints against police officers, and police officers. Well, anybody in a profession thinks, oh, if I post this on my social media, nobody can see it, you know, and I join a group and nobody can see whatever I'm doing, and they're shocked when you're like, no, it can be seen. You know, they don't realize, you know, and some of the younger people, you know, we talk about that in the book. You got to instill in your kids, you know, be careful what you post, because it has a long shelf life. And just because you think nobody's going to find it, somebody will someday. And don't post it. Don't put it up there to begin with.
That's another thing, just like the cultural difference across even just like my generation to like a current like kids generation now. Like I'm 35 tomorrow, and when I grew up, I did not have the internet in the extent that we, you know, have it today. And I feel really private. I feel like I have like a handful of photos that other people have taken of me and tagged me in on Facebook, and I even get kind of weirded out about that kind of stuff. I just get like, I don't know, I'm kind of just squirrely about it. And I've just grown up with like a weird resistance to it. And I feel like younger people today are just so much, just vastly more comfortable with sharing things that I would find to be really private. And it only happened in 10 or 20 years. I feel like really fast. I don't know, for something to turn around from, maybe I'm an outlier. Maybe I'm like a little weird for even my generation about it. But it does seem like it's much more common now.
It's interesting you mentioned that. The author I told you about, Kashmir Hill, talking about facial recognition, she found in doing the research on the book that they ran her picture through their program to see all the pictures that were out there. And she was surprised the number of pictures that she hadn't taken, that other people had taken, that were posted, that she was identified in, flagged in.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That would be, honestly, for me, it would be 4 times as many photos or something like that in my case, because I almost post nothing, and it's only tags that I find myself in other things. But that's something else to be aware of.
I mean, we've been getting reports, and that's the whole reason what sparked Zach starting his awesome podcast, Banished Big Brother, was, AT&T, so we've heard about the Verizon super cookies. We know AT&T is just sharing data with law enforcement, but there's murders being solved through Alexa recordings. I mean, it's just
in what way?
So the guy's voice pattern was recognized in one of the neighbors' Alexa because he was out in somebody's backyard screaming at him, and somehow.
So not even his own Alexa.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they were able to
neighbor snitches. Yeah.
Well, there's things they can do as well. If you've got a cell phone, your cell phone's being tracked. They can track you just loosely, barely without a warrant. They can track you down to a time of day within 10 feet of where you were.
They can do GPS level.
Usually, if a detective is showing up saying, "Hey,
find my friends.
This day and time were you at this place?" They already know you were.
Yeah. Alibi wise,
and how many killers have been caught because they carried their cell phone to bury the body, to kill the person, and
Yeah.
Why are you out in the swamp on Saturday night?
Yeah,
exactly. Well, then some quack said you can turn that off though, can't you? Well, hey, there was a recent update. It was national news. Alexa they don't give you that option anymore. They are sending your data. Yeah, Alexa.
Now they're just being official about it. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so if you got one of those in your house, it's on.
I'll never have one of those.
All right, so we're about an hour in, so let's go ahead and move on to the next segment here. If I can actually bring up the intro.
Let's do it.
And let me see here.
Steven's first time, so
that's right.
Patience.
I found it before. Hey, found it now. Here it is.
I am not fucking drunk.
Well, my teeth are blue.
Every pretty girl deserves to go to a ball.
This is everything about it's a clam. I love it.
I gotta be honest with you, I feel like I'm a little bit too drunk to stand up.
On Wiedersehen, asshole.
I'm drunk right now.
So this is a cool little segment of the show every week where, usually it has something to do with somebody doing something ballsy where, it's only explicable if you were drunk, so they do something outrageous. They make some kind of crazy political statement, something like that. But this one, this week, because there were no other votes, this guy actually, he had to be drunk. And of course you read this article and in true fashion of the Independent, they're trying to blame this on Google Maps. But the way they're framing this is that this guy, he was following directions from Google Maps. Google Maps rerouted him. He said he wanted to stay on his current route. And then he got confused by the concrete barriers that he had to pass. And all right, here we go. I'll show the video because this is a little better. It's actually got music with.
Oh.
I'm surprised it missed all the cars that are driving.
Honestly, I was going to say it's lucky it was a single car incident there. Yeah.
Golly. Yeah.
That's quite a jump, actually. That's like a Grand Theft Auto level ramp.
Yeah. He really stuck the landing on that one.
Did they walk away from that? Because they're.
Yeah. At the end of that video, it had him. What kind of car was that? That's what I really want to know.
Driver and passenger survived that, so which is wild.
Yeah,
I have a slightly similar story that's a lot less dramatic from when I was living down in Atlanta. But they were doing all that construction and probably still are on the north perimeter on 285. So I'm on the ramp trying to get on the 285 to go to work in the morning. And all of a sudden, on the other side of the barriers that are up, this sedan comes driving past me. This is like in the construction zone. And this there's nothing in there, but this sedan made a wrong turn in there. Is just driving along, trying to get on 285. Isn't paying attention. Next thing I know, I see a cloud of dust go up everywhere. And there was this giant concrete hole they cut out, and this car drove straight into it.
Oh God, that's rough, man.
I finally got up there, and I got up there a minute or two later, and the lady was out of the car, standing there, and I'm like, all right, well, she's not hurt, so All right, but yeah, not only were you in an area where there's no other cars, so I don't know what you think you're doing but then you just missed this giant slab of concrete that it had to be
I'm
at least
assuming there was
18
some kind of
inches
barricade
deep.
or cones or something around it.
Yeah, I think there were cones down, and it might have been the old on ramp that had since changed because of all the rerouting they did with it. But
she was on her cell phone. She was on her cell phone.
Yeah,
that's it. Well, and this is 285 that goes around, so that it does a circle around Atlanta.
The beltway around the metro.
There's something. The east side of 285 is like this Bermuda Triangle of your car's going to catch on fire.
Yes.
I don't know what it is, but every week there are at least 2 car fires just randomly. Like, hey, you have to change the oil in those things every 30,000 miles.
I didn't drive over there that much, and I saw burnt out cars that had just caught on fire. Like
the Bermuda highway situation.
Yeah.
Every time I go through Atlanta, I choose wrong, and I can bell around on either side, or I can go straight through. And every single time, I look at the map and I see, and there's no accidents when I'm choosing, and I pick one, and then 10 minutes later, there's a friggin' accident in front of me, and I'm stuck on that side, and the other sides are flowing. And I literally have like a curse with Atlanta. I cannot drive through without an accident.
you just gotta suck it up and go straight through.
I did that last time, and there was 3 accidents on 75 going through Atlanta when I was coming back from Florida. 3.
I've had some bad experiences trying to go around, that east side of 285.
Doesn't work.
Trying to get from Sandy Springs down to like McDonough, and it's just
game over.
Miserable.
Yeah.
Game over. Yeah.
No, not doing it.
I just can't choose right no matter what. But
yeah.
All me so much better when cars are completely autonomic, can drive by themselves. The computers will lead you where you need to go. Everything will be okay.
Yeah, right.
Cybersecurity security.
Yeah, that's the next level of
conversation here.
We've already had
done that. They've hacked cars.
That's my prettier half there. Yes. My wife, I love her dearly, but yes, she.
But likely true.
She is very busy when she's in the driver's seat, and less than half of that is actually driving.
I saw someone one time, they were putting on makeup on the highway on 95 in Florida.
Oh, I love it.
In the mirror doing this. And they miss their exit, and they slam on the brakes on the highway. They reverse on the interstate, and then they take the ramp off. Like, oh my God.
That sounds very Florida.
It's very Florida.
That was Rush Limbaugh's first episode in Atlanta, right? Because he said that Atlanta's traffic problems caused by women farting in their cars.
What?
But
farting?
F-A-R-D is a French word for putting on makeup.
Oh, okay.
Man,
farting.
He lit up the call lines with that one. They came out in spades.
Had a market.
Yeah, they were really mad about that one.
Yeah,
so let's go ahead and move on to the next topic here.
Let's do it.
So this is one that you guys may know a little more about this than me. Please correct me if I'm taking the wrong angle here, because obviously, I'm fully aware of the website we're using here is Medium.
I know more about design than you, and that's probably it.
So,
other than that, I defer to you. It's fine.
So Blackrock is apparently suing United Healthcare because in the wake of Luigi Mangione murdering the CEO, they're providing they're providing too much care. Because that was one of the stats that was in national news. Like, they're like, why would anybody murder the CEO of an insurance company? It's like, because you deny 85% of all your claims. De facto.
Is it 85? Is that right?
It was 70 plus. Yeah.
Oof, that's high.
Yeah. It was one of those where that was, it's all but come out that was their company policy, was to deny.
This feels right to me as someone I've never made a claim in my life. I figure everything out unless it's like an absolute critical emergency. But then we were just talking about the dregs of society, and so I'm sure there's people that are trying to do insurance fraud and stuff, and so the numbers, it's not all wholesome people, but
I just got an email today about they renewed our our health insurance contract, and so they sent out the new rates for it.
Mm.
I can't believe how much it is. Like, you want to guess how much it is, single person?
I do not want to guess.
Mortgage payment.
It's like, well, it's like $600 a month in before the company covers whatever they cover on it.
Yeah.
Now I like the cost to cover for a single person is $600 a month, and that's a low whatever, because I have an HSA and I have, that's a high deductible plan or whatever, which isn't that high whenever you consider I've stashed a bunch of money away in that HSA, so it's covered pretty well. But
you've got gold buried in your yard,
Well, hey, I've got a
I work for a company that is actually covers a whole bunch of it. They, the
Nice.
cost to me out per paycheck is like $25 out of that.
Nice.
Like 600
Good
out of that
man.
600 or whatever. Which
is, but then you see the actual cost. Like, good God.
Well, that's the thing is, I knew it was like $25. I was paying $25. Now it's up to $28 a month. Or a paycheck. But yeah, then I looked and saw how much they're paying, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
After this, Stephen, let me know when you're done with this. I have a mini rant about insurance and Haley's diabetic needles and some laws that just changed. We'll finish this up first. But
is it any surprise to anybody that an insurance company would deny a claim and then let you appeal it and then deny it? They're playing the game that, well, eventually they're going to die, and I'm not going to have to worry about paying the claim.
There you go.
There's a time scale, like an inevitable time scale that they know. They're playing a statistics game, really. I mean, honestly, and the statistics of some people will not fight the claim, the denial of the claim. The statistics of some people are not going to outlive this for very long, so it's just
40% of people are close to it, just give up and walk away. And
yep,
I'm going to negotiate a cash price directly with the hospital. Yeah.
Yep.
So the other solution is you do what Canada did and offer MAID to everyone.
Yeah.
And then I've been seeing a lot of stories where Canadians that like cross the border, come here and get tired of the system or waiting or something, and then just like will pay more but get it sooner, kind of thing, depending on how dire your situation is or whatever.
Yeah,
that's a conversation for maybe a whole other day. But
I've met a guy before he was from BC. And he got a tattoo. I mean, like full back, like a large tattoo.
Did he have an infection or something?
Found out the hard way he's allergic to the ink.
Oh, on a full back? Oh, God.
Yeah. And starts getting real sick. And then medical system up there takes him a month to get seen. And they're like, yeah, you're having an allergic reaction to the ink. It's going to kill you. You've got about 3 months to live. We've got an appointment set up.
We have an appointment in 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally, I got you. Yeah.
And so, then he gets on the phone down here, and Emory here in Atlanta, like, dude, $10,000, come down here next week. We'll get that thing out of you.
That's what I'm saying. It's for cases where it's like a very time sensitive, and people can't wait, and it's an infection, or it's an allergic reaction, or it's a cancer, or whatever. Yeah.
Right. So, anyways, let's look at this video here, because I mean, this is going to shed some light on this kind of thing.
Does it sound?
Yeah, I'm not getting any sound.
I never want to hear what Fink has to say anyway, but I'm not getting any sound still.
You're not getting sound?
Nope.
It's check the tab, the browser tab, the entire sound for the tab, and see if that's good.
Man, this is a novice mistake here.
No, it's all good, man.
Okay. Anyways, I'll read some of the article then. We'll cut the video out.
That's fine. Yeah.
But so it introduces you to Larry. Yeah, exactly. Larry Fink, the CEO of Blackrock. So basically the biggest corporation on the planet. If the Dutch East India Trading Company existed today, it would barely be bigger than Blackrock. Just to kind of give you a
and I've heard that that's hard to measure just with the way that
it's hard to measure.
Have so many fingers and so many pies asset wise in the country, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. It's all estimation.
Because I've heard some people say that they'd be bigger than even, but
well, sure. And then you get all this hidden wealth as well of, how do you really value something? Because the Vatican, they own a ton of land. And of course people are like, oh, well, no, they don't. Like, well, technically any land that has a Catholic church on it is owned by the Vatican. So
they also own a lot of knowledge, which is a whole other conversation. But
Right. So anyways, specifically in the wake of, the untimely demise of CEO Brian Thompson, there was, national coverage on Blackrock. Just the amount of claims that they were just blanket denying, making people appeal, making people fight the appeals process to cover things. Well, obviously they had some optics to fix, some PR issues to fix. And so the way they were doing that was like, hey, let's actually go back to a customer service model. Let's actually provide insurance to people.
Through BlackRock?
Well, BlackRock owns United Healthcare, right? So United Healthcare
gotcha. I was going to say,
is doing all this stuff. And then obviously, their profit margins drop, but their level of care goes up. And so does their customer satisfaction. But that's when BlackRock gets pissed, because now it's you're impeding the business flow.
Yeah.
And now, hey, heads up to all the CEOs out there. Now you see, your parent company will replace you, and if they can't, they'll start firing everybody at your company under you once you're gone. So that was the real thing. There is they couldn't care less about the public relations aspect of things or the actual lack of customer service or provision of actual insurance. It was a business problem. Profits were dropping. The share, the price of the share's stock was dropping.
That is their business, so of course that's all they care about. Like, legitimately, that is it.
Yeah,
because they're not even these companies; they're just invested in these companies.
Right. So, and again, this is one side of the story. So, is there more to this? I'm sure. I'm sure BlackRock has a side to the story too. Did United Healthcare just all of a sudden change policies? Hey, maybe you should have, because if you got people murking your executives in the street, usually that's a sign you're doing some bad business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that Mangione was justified in that either. That's
there's so many layers to this; it's hard to even
absolutely,
in terms of ethics or whatever.
Right, yeah. So go ahead.
I'm going to throw something out, and it's kind of related to it. We're talking about Social Security disability payments for somebody to get qualified for that, and there's a whole process that people have to go through to get qualified. And in my work as a U.S. probation officer, I saw people who got qualified like bang, boom, right away. And I'm like, what's wrong with them? And they would say, oh, I am borderline intellectual functioning. And I'm like, that qualifies you for Social Security benefits. And it didn't seem right to me. But I also had people that I supervised. I remember this guy, he was suffering from multiple sclerosis. You could clearly see it was affecting him. And every time he applied, he had to appeal it. And the people that were making money off this were the attorneys who were filing the appeals, because they get a cut out that. And, the court, whether the court was the magistrates or whatever were going along with this, like, oh, we'll continue this. But basically they continue denying, and years after years, the person gets this, if they survive, they get this huge lump sum payment of back, but then the attorney also gets a big
chunk
cut
of that.
So it's kind of like an incentivized program to drag out the appeal process.
Right.
So attorneys get fat, and the person who really needs the care needs the supplement. I'm talking a legitimate case, and they need to do something with that. I know there's people that are on it that shouldn't get it.
It's a really hard system to weed out because some people that deserve it more don't get it, and less that do get it, and it's very complicated in that way. But in general, I hear what you're saying systematically, and I'm wondering, like, is there is there someone lobbying for this to continue this way? Like, is there someone that's like putting in,
of course,
lobbying for like our attorneys in some way, like if they're benefiting this much? This reminds me of the case where there was a city in Texas that was like all of the DUI lawyers in the area band together and try to make Uber illegal because they were causing them a loss in their business because people weren't getting into drunk accidents as much, and it looked so shady. But like, this is the kind of thing that just happens when you start stepping on people's toes money wise or whatever. And when you get private and public kind of intertwining with the lobbying thing, a lot of this happens, and then you get these drawn out processes. But
and there's grift on all sides of it too. But one great example of abuse of that Social Security system. There's a documentary series called "The Wild and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia."
Oh yeah.
The White family. There's a guy named Jesco White that used to tap dance on PBS. And
I know
and
of
course,
those. Yeah.
Yeah, their family is friends with Hank Jr. the Third.
I like Hank Jr.
He's in the documentary series. So, anyways, it was Jesco White's daddy. I forget the guy's name, but this was back in like the 50s. He had his entire bloodline declared insane from birth.
Like, without even just like, if you were born in that name, you were insane.
Yeah, if you're from Boone County, West Virginia, and your last name's White, you're insane. Here's your check.
Wow!
And from the day you're born, you're drawing Social Security.
That's crazy. I don't remember that. That's funny.
Yeah, because he worked in the coal mines, and then the company store collapsed, and
what else do you do? West Virginia.
There was nothing to do because it was. I mean, like the coal mine owned the town, and they were the currency.
Yeah.
And so, that was, and somehow he just geniusly, maliciously, I don't know, there's a genius aspect. Absolutely. Yeah.
Evil genius. Yeah.
And so, so now we're, 3-4 generations removed from that. And this whole family's been on Social Security from birth.
So are subsequent births, do they fall under that? Like if someone's born today with the name White, they classify as insane? This is wild, legally speaking. This is insane. I don't know what the precedent even.
Yeah, exactly.
And Dodge didn't uncover this during their intense investigation of the fraud and abuse.
Right.
I mean, honestly, this documentary probably made him volunteer for the job. It's
and that's another thing. Yeah.
Yeah, if you got a few hours to burn, it's fantastic.
I've seen it years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a perfect illustration of people that don't need it absolutely do not deserve it and are abusing it.
It's frustrating to watch that.
Are getting all the money or way too much of it, and then the people that genuinely need it are not getting it. See, and that's the big problem. That's why, as libertarians, we don't think the government should provide safety nets.
Right, because it keeps getting thwarted and abused, and because
the program's run by people 3,000 miles away from you. That all they know is paperwork and what's on their computer screen. They're not actually assessing the situation. So if it were a local person or church or organization or whatever, they're actually going to go look you in the eyes, shake your hand, get to know you.
That's also a factor of bureaucracy also, and government being in the nature of government, where you can't judge things on a case-by-case basis. You have to judge it off of what checks the boxes. Otherwise you're discriminating, you're this, you're that. So that it's built into the system, these failures.
I'm absolutely discriminating. When I pick deodorant, when I pick shampoo,
right.
We've talked about this. The definition.
What beer I'm drinking? Yeah. Absolutely, I discriminate all the time. It gets me where I am.
Right.
Well, I don't discriminate here. It says BEER on the can or ALE. It's for me.
Hallelujah.
If someone's handing me a beer and I'm a guest in their home, then I don't discriminate. Then it's beer, yeah. But if I'm choosing, then I might discriminate a little bit.
Yeah. So Alden, the insulin prescription stuff is it's a hot topic. It was mentioned in this article. what's your story on that?
Oh man, okay. So my girlfriend's a diabetic, type 1. She has to administer insulin. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
So she's born with it.
You know, it's funny. So she is Lotta disease type 1, which is an autoimmune disease that kicked in a few years ago for her. So she's one of the rare ones that it was later in life. But it's still type 1 because she has antibodies in her body that attack her own pancreas and basically know the pancreas to basically zero function over time. So she's type 1, but it came a few years ago, which is interesting. So we've been adapting to this, and she could order needles. You could either go to Walgreens, you could get a prescription for them, which I always thought was odd because they're a needle that's about an eighth or a quarter inch long, and it just screws on the tip of, it's designed specifically for insulin pens. It's not any other thing. You can't use it hypodermically or intravenously for heroin or something. There's no recreational function for this itty bitty little needle. It just goes just under the skin to the fat tissue.
It's a bee sting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're talking, it's about the same length needle as the lancet to test your finger for the blood tip thing. It's so tiny, and it screws specifically onto an insulin pen. And they just made it where it needs to be a prescription only item to order the needle. And they'll only give 30 days worth at a time, and there's 16 days worth in a box, so they will not give 2 boxes, so you can't even get your month's worth because it's 32 or 3 days worth of needles. So she gets a month's worth of insulin and 16 days worth of needles now. So we're trying to figure this out, and it forces you into weird situations over something that has zero recreational function. It's not a needle in the sense that we're thinking, like it's this long. It's insane. And it is something that arbitrarily, randomly, all of a sudden just changed. And it makes me wonder what lobbyist made this, just pushed for this or whatever, and what, insurance lobbyist, because now we have to go through insurance to get a prescription needle to then administer the prescription insulin. And then the doses are not even aligned with the insulin. It's an absolute mess right now. It's insane.
Yeah.
And state by state.
I know about those needles because when my mom was, of course, she was on the downhill slope with breast cancer, or in my mind, it was breast cancer therapy that was really getting her. So we found there was a natural doctor in the area that was doing the German mistletoe therapy. I'll let you do your research on that. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I was having to, break a glass ampule, suck it up into the syringe, but I was having to do it sub-Q with insulin needles.
So there's a secondary purpose, but it's not recreational. I wouldn't call it recreational.
Right. And we were having to do it that way. And we were having to jump through hoops to get the insulin needles. And I was like, my mom has cancer. Give me the freaking needles.
Yeah. And in this case, I have a diabetic who needs it for that purpose. Go ahead, Ari.
It's the same bastard that came out with hot dogs. You buy a pack of hot dogs and you can't get the same number of buns.
And 8. Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah.
That is like one of the age-old questions. Yeah, we're going to sell 8 hot dogs in a pack, or of buns, but 5 hot dogs. Yeah, like what? Why?
Yeah, there we go.
Inhaler. Oh.
So Zach's talking about his asthma inhaler. It has no abuse potential or recreational value. Needs a prescription. He's gotten them in Mexico for like $25. Well, by the way, Zach, heads up, the Sahara dust is coming at us over the weekend. So your asthma might be flaring up.
In the year again?
It's that time of year. It's
Haley's allergies have been blowing up the past 2 days. I don't know if that's about that or something.
Well, it could be mold. I mean, it's been raining in Georgia for a week straight. Good God.
Dude, don't even talk to me about rain or mold. Oh my God. That's a whole other thing for another day. Oh my God, dude. I got to get a whole French drain system going in my yard. Like, Jesus.
But Zach, if you're on albuterol or albuterol is the one I know. Like bodybuilders use that because it's a bronchial dilator, so it'll get more oxygen into your bloodstream. And so
for events to get more oxygen into the muscle or whatever.
I've seen it. Those absolute muscle heads that are doing everything but shooting up roids. Yeah, they'll rip an asthma inhaler and then go max out on the bench. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
I
wouldn't call it recreational, but like niche side usage. Yeah. Yeah. That's funny.
All right, y'all got any more funny health stories, or are we going to go on the next topic here?
I don't know if they're funny, but I don't. I'm fresh out right now, so
yeah. I'm sure there's enough for us.
You know what? I'm also fresh out of is my scotch. I'll be right back.
Oh, there we go. All right, so we're going to go into this one here.
You know, if you don't laugh at this stuff, you cry. So
that's the thing. I try to have a sense of humor. I agree, man. We try to just navigate the world with that philosophy.
That's why we just kind of have beers about it on a weekly basis.
Yep. Honestly,
I mean, because
therapy.
I don't know if my wife's still in the comments section or not, but I mean, me being on here, she doesn't have to hear about it. This is my outlet for a few days, right?
Oh, I've had that talk with my girl as well. She's like, you know what? Talk to them for 2 hours. That's great.
Right. Yeah. So Trump and the tariffs. Unless you live under a rock, that's been the story this week. Is the tariffs? So there was I forget what the court system is. It might mention it in this article here, but I brought this up.
International Trade Court.
There we go. Yeah. So it's got this official title, not mentioned in the Constitution. What is mentioned in the Constitution is that the president can tariff, basically. And then now the big story throwing out, and of course, this is a New York Times article. I have it here. They're throwing out this TACO acronym. Trump always chickens out because they're just trying to get him pissed off and make him do something. And I would play the video, but I'm not sure you'd be able to hear it. He handles it pretty well. Of course, he does kind of flounder a little bit and do his Trump thing to stay in the limelight. But I mean, he starts talking about all the investments that he's brought to the country. Now, are they the kind of people we want investing in our country? That's a whole separate issue. But
yeah,
money is coming in. So, and I did look this up right before the show. The appeals court has stepped back in now and said the tariffs stay for now until they can actually hear the appeals case.
Great.
Yeah, exactly. So, again, I mean, as libertarians, tariffs are a tax. They are a tax passed on to the consumer.
Yeah, not a fan.
So, we're as a knee jerk, we're not going to be a fan of that. But are we already seeing positive changes because of these things? Just because of the talk of them? Absolutely.
Almost nothing is 100% good or bad. I would maybe make an exception for some of the darker things we were talking about earlier in this show, but almost nothing politically as a decision is 100% like good or bad. It's just sort of some of it is perception and some of it's baked in and some of it's like, cost associated with these different choices and risk and things like that. But again, like you were saying, as a knee jerk, as a libertarian, we're not gonna love the idea of a tariff. But
well, I mean, because just immediately you see stuff getting more expensive as a direct result of this one butthole in the federal government.
Right.
It's real easy to go, hey, stop that. Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
I don't like that.
You're only going to buy one doll this year for your child. They don't need 30 dolls.
Right. Well,
just remember that.
Yeah, well, or you can just buy an American Girl doll and just take out a mortgage payment on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's got.
But where did your cigar come from? Is that an American cigar?
No, this is I know it's got to be Dominican, and I'm going to be. Don't even get me started on the business with cigars. They came out with these. Well, they came out with these rules that they wanted to restrict cigars, thinking kids were buying these cigars.
What kid has ever been seen with a cigar?
Well, the flavored ones, they're just buying those, and I'm like, I don't want to. I spend maybe on a moderately priced cigar, $8. A kid's not buying an $8 cigar. But
no, they're buying Black and Milds, man. Yeah.
Yeah, but they painted this, the Cigar Rights Association has come out and forget what organization was wanted to tax or not tax them, restrict them more than what they were, and they've actually gotten exclude premium cigars. Kids are not buying premium cigars.
Right. Honestly, I agree. I feel like a similar story could be applied to lots of different products, whether it's alcohol, tobacco, whatever. But yeah, kids are not buying premium cigars, and why that has anything to do with anything.
Depends on what you're declassifying as kids. I mean, I remember in high school we it was like a tradition, high school graduation, smoke a cigar afterwards. I was still 17 at the time, and
I was gonna say most people are 18.
Right.
I was 17 actually.
So we were we went up to Toronto on a band trip, and while they gave us free time to wander around the mall there or whatever, a couple of us snuck out and found the closest tobacco shop and bought Cubans.
Sure.
And then smuggled them back into the US.
Nice.
I mean, that's a good story, but I don't know. Good on you. You were in Canada. I don't care.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't find a problem with that. But
so what? A small section of kids think cigars are attractive, but hey, FDA, you're giving out amphetamine gummy bears to kindergartners.
Yeah.
Let's
legitimately true.
Let's handle things with a little bit of equity here. I mean, that's just we can't have Joe Camel anymore, but hey, amphetamine gummy bears.
Joe Camel, yeah.
Good grief.
I remember when they had candy cigars and candy cigarettes and
yeah.
Where
you blow the little puff of smoke out. Yeah, I had that.
So with the tariffs, I mean, so the last president we've had, I think we mentioned this before. The last president we had that was really throwing out tariffs real hard as a policy was Gerald Ford. And
is that right?
That's why the markets are all panicked, because no big trader, Wall Street trader, is alive today that remembers the results of Gerald Ford's policies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, but the man did some work, and Trump talked about him during his campaign trail.
Well, there was a video out of Ronald Reagan. He said tariffs are a bad thing. He was against tariffs. And I could see tariffs in certain instances, but not the shotgun approach where you're
just widespread.
we're going to raise tariffs on everybody. I'm
right.
Yeah, just birdshot it. And Ford, I mean, in his day, wasn't there the whole 74 gas shortage and economic crisis and everything? There was a lot of things going on. It wasn't a good time, right?
Oh, well, it never is. I mean, it's
okay.
Who wants to wake up and stuff is more expensive than it was yesterday?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, there was a series of problems.
Well, then you had Carter come in, and then the energy crisis, and just wear a sweater all the time, and
okay. In Minnesota in the winter, just wear more layers. That's the answer.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as the tariffs, I mean, there's good and bad coming out of it. Now, as a strategy, as the way he does business, where he'll have some bluster up front, and then if you don't negotiate with him, then it does hurt. And then you actually do negotiate with him. Either way, you're going to negotiate with the guy because he's got the upper hand somehow. So from that aspect, yes, we're moving the pile that way. But I mean, like you said, the shotgun approach, not the way to go about this. I mean,
I agree.
If you want to acknowledge the trade war with China, acknowledge the trade war with China.
But then that's specific to China, and we're doing it with it's Canada and South America, and it's just anything. It feels like chaos.
Well, and part of that is he's probably fishing out who's loyal to China. I mean, because they
okay.
Because they run the UN Security Council, they run the Human Rights Organization of the UN, and then BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa.
I thought you were going to say BRICS. Yeah.
Yeah, China was running the game on that. So
right,
you piss everybody off and see who acts like somebody else, or who's following who.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of that. He grabbed the whole jar of ants and just shook it.
The side to that is people that may have been on the fence with China are like, well, China's not fucking us over, so I'm going to get closer with China. So
it might send
some
people,
of those policies are going to send people that were on the fence or at least neutral to us more towards our enemies by some of these.
That's
tactics.
interesting.
Well, that's the story of our foreign policy the past 20 or so years anyway, right? China's been going in with the Belt and Road and like, oh yeah, let's get you let's build you a whole bunch of infrastructure and ports and stuff. And we're like, and our foreign policy is do what we say or we're overthrowing you.
Yeah.
And the whole angle is that it's like, oh, on the surface, it's like, I want to support American businesses. But that's because a lot of American, like, small and medium-sized businesses are using foreign products. Like, if you're an apparel company, you're going to get apparel, like fabric, like textiles made in another country, and then you're doing your own thing with it, with design or whatever, and then you're fabricating it here, and then you're selling it. But it's like, you know, layered. It's multifaceted. And so it actually is going to hurt a lot of American businesses as well. It's not just going to help. It might help like Lockheed Martin or some fucking thing. I don't know. But like, it's not going to help every American business because it's been for years intertwined now. And there's a lot of companies that are leaning on these foreign products as like a base to their own business plan.
Oh, absolutely. My profession is construction adjacent. And so there's something called the AGC, the Association of General Contractors, and they do all the financial market analysis of construction industries, macro and micro within states and counties and demographics and all that whole breakdown. And they've been going crazy with some webinars so far this year with some of the public bid portals that I'm registered with. I mean, they're bringing on these AGC economists that are, it's the whole Chicken Little routine. We don't know what effect the tariffs are going to have on the industry. We've been rebounding. Right. We've been on the rebound since 2020, but we're probably going to go back to pre-2020 levels. I'm like, well,
right.
By the way, 2018, 2019 were fucking awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say unless you go all the way back to 08, there was good times. In there, it's not.
They love throwing out this whole pre-2020.
Pre-2020,
yeah. That's so bad. But like, 2020 sucked for a reason.
Right. Yeah.
It's not like everything was awful, and then we came out of the swamp and we're good. And that
was
builds
the
up.
reason
That builds
that
on the
government got too involved in the economy, but
that just builds onto the whole narrative that it was a deliberate reset as well. And of course, I'm taking my little conspiracy angle with that. But
I'm with you on that one.
You get global economists talking about a reset, and now all of a sudden, anything pre-2020 is just disastrous. But
and you got to be careful with me. I've had a lot of scotch now at this point, but like when you get closed door meetings of public officials that have stock portfolios and private things in sectors that they're making decisions about, and then they are the benefactors of their own decisions, and then we are in the dark, and then we get the news the next week and we can't make the same decisions with our stock portfolios. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
What they're doing that to us? No way.
Another stop the presses moment. Yeah.
I mean, now what is wreaking havoc on all markets across the board, not just construction, is the interest rates, the money supply, inflation. All of those things are real. These were issues that were on the rise before tariffs were even talked about. Which, by the way,
very literally on the rise. Yeah.
They haven't even gone into effect yet, have they? Like, we had a 90-day warning, and now we paused on that.
It's been in the probational period or whatever. Like
I mean, they're kicking the can down the road because over half the countries in the world came to the negotiating table within the first week.
Is this? Do you think that that's what this is? Is this like a Trumpy billionaire just like business?
Yes.
Threat kind of.
It's exactly his. It's exactly his negotiating tactics, right? I mean,
because we talked about this. I brought this up like weeks ago when this came up. Is this just like a tactic like this to get like a bargaining chip kind of a tactic or whatever?
Yeah, I'm gonna walk up to you, kick you in the balls, and then we're gonna have a bourbon together, and
then I'm selling ball kick remedy also to
and then you leave the meeting and you don't even remember the kick in the balls. You remember the awesome bourbon we had together afterwards.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
Right. We knew who Trump was coming in, right?
But I point out that you kicked me in the balls. I'm going to remember that, even though you gave me a bourbon. I might the bourbon's just going to kill the page for a little bit.
Yeah, short term.
And the next time I have a chance to fuck you, it's going to happen. I hope.
Right. That might be true too, because it's just bad business practice in the long term. Potentially, I tend to agree. I don't think that's good business practice to wield in like threats all the time. But
yeah. As I mentioned there, I mean that's been our foreign policy, our monetary policy for at least the past 20, 30 years. Is that the more it works as long as you still have that leverage.
Yeah.
As long as the dollar is still the global reserve. And honestly, it's probably not going anywhere. So there is that leverage, but it's not the most conducive to a happy, business relationship.
Well, and I think in the long run, you're going to have society, the countries around the world are going to go, we're going to remember this happened, and we're going to be prepared for it. We're going to find alternatives so that we don't have to subject ourselves to getting kicked in the balls every time a new president comes along and says, I'm going to change the policy.
Every 4 years or something.
And that's exactly what Russia did, right? So Obama gets in there, and that's when this whole tit for tat really started. It might have been going on before that, but this is when I was really paying attention to it.
Is this the NATO encroach thing, or?
Well, when Putin invaded Georgia, the country,
right?
Obama was in office then, and that started this whole tit for tat of like, hey, you back out of there. And he goes, no, this is my territory. I still have the deed. You guys took it from me during some.
My social security number's on the deed.
right.
Well, you're talking what the whole South Ossetia thing, where I think under an agreement with like France or something that Russia could be providing the security services
right
in that disputed region.
Yeah, and so then the retaliation was, well, we're not going to have Kalashnikov rifles anymore. I'm like, why? They're fantastic.
Yeah, they worked. Whatever.
I was literally saving my money for a Sega shotgun. Can't get one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at least legally that I can talk about.
Well, can't get one. Yeah.
Yeah, I had this boating accident. It was a great shotgun, but it fell off the boat. It's in the lake now. It's tragic.
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember there. I mean, Obama started with that rhetoric. Remember against Romney when they were in the debate, and Obama said that Russia's the greatest threat, and Romney was the Cold War called and want their whatever back, or
Russia is our natural ally against radical Islam. I can't fathom how no one sees this. Putin, yeah, okay.
Is Russia mostly Catholic? Is that their main?
There's been a Christian Orthodox resurgence in Russia for the last 20 years.
Okay.
Most Russian cities don't allow mosques to be built at all.
Oh, wow.
I mean it's radically Christian these days, and organic food, all that kind of stuff. Because that was when Obama was in office. Putin had a problem with all the stuff we sprayed our produce with. So they were trying to buy.
That's one thing that Europe gets right, is honestly not doing as much bullshit crop spraying and stuff.
Yeah, because what is it? It's dimethylamine. So if you bought an apple that looks great, it's real firm,
and then on the inside it's really hollow, gross. They wax it too, and it can't breathe. The skin can't permeate any oxygen or whatever, either direction. Yeah,
that apple is 6 months old. I mean,
it looks great, but it's basically wax fruit on the outside or whatever. Yeah.
So Russia said, hey, stop doing that, or we're not going to buy it. And then that was Obama's retaliation. It was like, well, we're not going to buy your vodka and shotguns anymore.
Great. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
We all suffer.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this before.
I love both of those things.
Yeah, honestly, one of the few things I want from there, actually. They've been doing these for years. They do them well. And then in the same administration did away with this Smith-Mundt Act or whatever of 1948, which basically allowed propaganda to be legally distributed across news media or whatever, which is now a whole thing that we're facing, where there's no legal ramification for the dissemination of propaganda across news media, where there used to be, and that was something of that same administration. But
there you go. Well, and so
someone I voted for back in that time.
Exactly. Back in the Soviet days, their media organization, their instrument of propaganda was called Pravda, which, direct translation is truth. Which enough,
I've heard this.
That's the name of Trump's social media platform.
Interesting.
Really odd coincidence there.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
coincidence in quotes. Yeah.
All right, let's see here. So we'll go ahead and do a little cool down. So one thing I wanted to bring up that I didn't mention when we were doing the cybersecurity thing. So we mentioned it at all levels, right? So you got private, you got medical, industrial, educational. So with your colleges, your college registrations, things like that. The government level, at the military level, cybersecurity is an increasing issue, and it's one of those things that if you fail to pay attention to it, it will come find you. So now here's another aspect of it, and Art, I hope you sleep well tonight. Montana has introduced a bill, and I think it's actually passed. They've had to pass a privacy bill for neural activity.
Say what? Why? What do you mean?
So, data collected that monitors your central peripheral nervous system. So Xbox Connect is one thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
When it's reading your body movement, your eye movement, things like that.
Right.
But then now we know Neuralink is something that's coming down the pipes.
Yeah.
So things like that. So just like Facebook can sell your images, 23andMe can obviously sell your genetic data to the FBI.
Right. And metadata is the biggest industry that Amazon's involved in, and they sell everything else physically under the sun, and yet metadata is what they make more money from.
Yeah. So now apparently your brainwave fingerprint can be
cool.
sold, and what else is going to be a currency? So there's one thing that's kind of weird.
A commodity now, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there's one thing that's kind of weird too. So I took some computer programming classes. This is back in 2012. And that was at the time, it was the advent of the IP version 6. So, IPv4 is still the hottest thing, but IPv6 was one of the things we were having to learn how to subnet. It was a networking class. And they were saying that so IPv4 didn't fit the bill because, there was so much new technology, so many things that were connecting to the internet. The Internet of Things was coming. So they had to have some kind of new protocol that allowed for so many exponentially more IP addresses. And so they were asking, how many IP addresses can exist on the IP version 6. And somebody was saying that it has enough for an IP address to be assigned to every cell of every person's body currently alive at the time it was rolled out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But this is pre-VPN or?
Well, yeah, but that's one of those things that just kind of springs back reading a story like this. It's just,
oh yeah, right.
Yeah. So, it's really interesting. But this is kind of the good aspect of it, because now, we have people that are aware at the legislative level that are just like Art, that are like, hey, quit coming for me on so many levels, and actually, getting some protections in place.
It would be better, I imagine.
Yeah.
To quote Scar, be prepared, I have a lot of scotch.
Yeah.
It's quoting Disney movies.
Yeah.
What is a lot of scotch, by the way?
I was drinking before the show. It's my birthday tomorrow. It's about a third of a bottle thus far, or whatever, and some beers, but
yeah,
and some tequila. But who's counting?
Well, happy early birthday!
Thank you. It's my birthday eve, if you will. Yeah,
that's right.
I also thought I was off tonight because I read the Discord message wrong because I didn't scroll down, because I'm a.
Jake edited it from what it said initially.
Oh, okay, because earlier this week I saw it.
He was messing with you, yeah.
Oh, okay, because I only looked at it earlier this week and was like, I'm off. I'm going to be drinking on my birthday eve-ish time, whatever. And then I'm like, It's the show's called Libations, so I'm drunk, and what do you do?
That's what drew it to me. It was like, oh, I can actually drink during a talk show, and I can
It's
smoke a
encouraged.
cigar.
Yeah,
we're just hanging out. Yeah.
If
Even if I
Haley would
did-
let me smoke inside, I would do it too. But
Even if I didn't have a book, I'd be coming on here just to drink. It's a reason, you know.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we'll get you back on sometime. If there's got a hot topic,
sounds like you write enough. Your next book, come on, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, with that said, I mean we're getting close to the 2-hour mark. I know palate cleanser is next. I don't really have one. If you guys do, let me know. But that's
pull up the Florida man story I posted in the.
There you go.
That's not a video, but at least it's a fun story. Kind of fun.
Florida stories are always fun.
Yeah. As someone that was born in Florida, I can sign off on that, man. There's some
throw the press, Nick. I'll put it up there.
Wrote it. Okay.
I told Haley, she invited me when we first met. She was like, "Hey, do you want to come to this bonfire?" And I was like, "What are they going to be burning?" And she's like, "Wood. I don't know. What do you think?" And I'm like, "Hey, I'm from Florida. I know what to be concerned about with this. We get there. It starts with wood, and then they backed a 14-foot Carolina skiff fiberglass boat onto the fire at one point and burned a boat while I was there. And I was like, I told you, this is what I was asking. I was like, who are your friends? And I'm like, they're a bunch of Florida rednecks. I shouldn't have been at this bonfire. Burning fiberglass.
There was a period of about 3 years. That was the birthday toast I did for anybody that invited me. If we went out for a birthday dinner, birthday party,
burn a boat.
Whatever their birthday was, I would just Google search Florida man and then that date.
Yeah.
And then on this day in 2006, and just read the story. And it was like,
yeah.
Just say all that to say
the dice.
I threw the tweet in the chat.
All right. Let's see here.
I threw the tweet in the chat so you can at least pull that story up.
Right. Bear with me for just a moment here. All right, here we go. So, meth-crazed Florida man is bitten by alligator, charges at the cops with garden shears before he's shot dead in a wild series of events.
See, Florida is both prehistoric and post-controlled substance. It's a problematic combination of things.
Oh,
because that is a terrible combination of things in one sentence.
Yeah. So, meth-crazed Florida man survived getting bitten by an alligator just to be fatally shot when charged at cops. Oh, when he charged at the cops and tried to help him. Okay, so the wild scene erupted after
there's so much wrong with this.
He was swimming in a lake in Lakeland, south of Orlando. Yep, that's ate up with him.
Yeah.
So he was high on drugs.
Don't swim in Florida lakes, man. That's rule number 1.
Good grief.
The amoebas are more scary than the alligators, to be honest.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It terrified me as a kid. Moccasins and amoebas, I was more afraid of than alligators, to be honest.
He just found a pair of garden shears somewhere, and
yeah, was he carrying these with him? That's a good question.
Well, it says he just found them in a nearby house.
Yeah, I was like, where did he procure just shears at it somewhere?
And he tried to jump into one of the cars and remove a gun from there.
This is Grand Theft Auto mindset. This is insane. Which I'm actually very excited for GTA 6, but
my guess he was trying to do something unnatural to that alligator, and that's all.
I mean, it's Florida, man.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, crikey! Stick me thumb in his butthole.
Was there a black market filming industry behind this that was manipulating him into doing it? We don't know, you know.
But still, as a story, this is just wild. You're 1 minute you're swimming in the lake, getting bit by an alligator, then you're.
That's the normal part, apparently.
Yeah, and then the cops are trying to help you, and you go, just wild.
This is a bite the hand that feeds kind of thing.
Jeez. Yeah, that guy just flipped out. That is. Yeah, there we go. That's a flipped out dude right there. That's and he's even got that face. Yeah, I flipped out. Shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I knew it. I know
what
I
did.
That looks like a prior booking
survive
picture.
This.
That looks like a prior booking picture.
It is. He didn't survive this.
Right.
So
he did not?
No, no, they killed him.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
So
I
the
realized that.
he gets bitten by an alligator. The cops show up trying to help him.
Yeah.
And then apparently he runs at him with a pair of garden shears. And
Right. Yeah.
Oh my God, he's coming right for us.
I guess.
Yeah.
Well, no. The whole story is that he tried the garden shears. They still didn't do it. They tried only stun guns. Then they only started shooting when he busted into one of their cars and tried to take a gun out of it.
Oh,
my
damn.
God.
Right. Yeah. Well,
so it's an even wilder story.
I'm glad I'm not in Florida anymore, I guess. I don't know. What do you do? It was a crazy place to grow up, man.
Well, here we go. We'll do this right here live. So we'll do.
What?
Yeah, we'll do your birthday. So Florida man.
Oh, okay, yeah, May 30th. Yeah,
May 30th. Hold on, let's see here. Let's find one.
I hope this is a good one for my birthday.
Let me take the TH off.
I hope it's better than anything I've done while I was in Florida. Let's say that.
Carjacking. So you're getting a lot of the alligator story because
that's the thing.
Because that's what I just looked up.
Yeah. And it knows what you're looking for here. Yeah.
Let's see if we go to the news tab. 6 things
You'll probably get better results after tomorrow, like after my birthday, because then it'll be more recent. Because right now you're fighting news stories to dig up literally 1 year minus a day stories. Like
you might have to hit schools and
next week we'll look up my birthday.
Next week, you might have to filter it down a couple weeks back, a year back,
right?
And run the news stories.
Thanks, Obama.
Time for that. We'll just wait till next week. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. Well, before we go, Art, where can people follow you? What do you got coming up next? Anything like that?
And where to find the book? And
the book is on Amazon. You get it on Amazon. We also run a blog, the Cyber Safety Guys, myself and Todd Shipley. Just search the Cyber Safety Guys, and you'll find our blog. And we post stuff, as it comes up. I just posted the Kentucky story because I thought that was, an interesting thing that happened. And I appreciate you guys having me on. I enjoyed the talk and had a good time.
You, man.
All right.
Yeah.
Nick, you have anything coming up?
No, nothing I can think of.
Okay. My whole thing down here in Georgia, Libertarian Party, there's a ballot access petition going around. I know that's a little more local than some folks are probably tuned in for, but it's quite literally the party's ability to survive.
Last. Yeah.
It's not saying that you like our candidates, you think the party's the best. It's the petition is literally it's just our ability to be. So normally we meet our threshold to stay on the ballot with the PSC races. For reasons beyond our control, they were canceled, and now we didn't meet the threshold. So now we're having to petition again. It's 80-something thousand signatures we're having to get just for the ability to be on the ballot. So go to lpgeorgia.com or the LP Georgia website. I might be, let's see here, LP Georgia. What is that website? Let's get it right. lpgeorgia.com. So go there, find a local affiliate.
Be careful.
I think both .com and .org go to the same place.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
We were just talking about the scams with it. If it's
just don't log on there to pay your parking tickets. LP Georgia does. They do not do toll roads. They do not do parking tickets. They do petitions to be on the ballot.
They do petitions though. Yeah.
There we go. So with that said, thank you again to our guest, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks again, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Take care.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Join the crew.